Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines we have for you today. We got John Deaton on Coinbase. We got BIS on crypto regulations. You're going to want every single bit of that. We got Andrew Whitworth and Brendan Barry from Ripple talking about a $10 trillion problem, ladies and gentlemen. The FedNow, ISO20022, and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, we're sitting at $1.26 trillion market cap for cryptocurrency. It is up 0.7%. Good morning, everybody, and happy 4th of July to everybody in the United States. Bitcoin, 31,000, slightly over right now. Ethereum, 1960 and change. We see Tether market cap is $83.3 billion, and we still don't know how the Department of Justice, U.S. Treasury, feel about it, but we will soon enough. I bet you that. 48 cents, critical line for XRP. It's holding strong right now. We're up 0.5% on a 24-hour, 1.5 on a 7-day. Let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. It is private equity. It is link2.com. The link is underneath the video. What I want you to see is all the stuff that's available, which is multiple. But I also want you to see all the things that are fully subscribed. Artificial intelligence, this audience loves it, and they buy it up like crazy, just like they do Circle and Chainalysis and Link2 and Ripple and Polysign and others and Uphold. But you can still get these top sellers here while it's available. Click that link. It goes quick, ladies and gentlemen. Now look at this. 1 second. We start right here. It's with John Deaton. We have 2,331 customers who have joined to potentially be heard as amicus curiae in the SEC versus Coinbase. Again, this isn't about protecting or defending Coinbase. It's about speaking up for ourselves and not letting the SEC or Coinbase speak for us. I want to highlight in this tweet here exactly what we've been witnessing. And what we've been witnessing is pretty remarkable because Meta Lawman brought a light to this, and shout out to him. John Deaton has changed the way every cryptocurrency case is fought, period, full stop. The fact that amicus curiae filings have had such an impact, starting with the SEC versus Ripple case and his participation to represent over 76,000 XRP holders, has really caught fire. And again, happening here. Now, is it the same amount of people? No. But it's still extremely relevant to have this outside representation come in, because all of these projects or all of these lawsuits, rather, are either about suggesting that the assets are securities or an entity is selling securities, digital asset securities. And obviously the SEC is overreaching in all of these instances as far as I'm concerned. But what is important here is that you have this third-party representation coming into these cases to really, really lay out a voice that is not absolutely represented in these cases. And this is a game changer as far as I'm concerned. So I want to highlight that and shout out that John Deaton not only representing all of us in the XRP community, but really changing the game in the way that you fight and litigate these cases. Paul Grewal, Chief Legal Officer from Coinbase, former federal judge, says here, to John Deaton's tweet about Gary Gensler essentially in the SEC claiming Coinbase is running an illegal business, yet the largest asset manager in the world and others disclosing their intent to do business with this illegal business, it tells you all you need to know about what's really going on. And I couldn't agree more. And he said, yes, sir, yes, it does. And if we click this very quickly here, you see that just in $9 trillion asset manager BlackRock names Coinbase as SSA counterpart in updated spot Bitcoin ETF filing. They keep pushing for the spot ETF, right? And the fact that the BlackRock, as mentioned here by John Deaton, and Coinbase are working together, it really does tell you everything that we've talked about for years on this channel. You're going to see these large legacy institutions and firms come into this space, and they're going to get a massive position and skin in the game, or this doesn't move forward. And it tells me that the SEC is not working to protect a little investor like you and I. Oh no. The SEC is working to suppress the market so the large institutions can buy it up, pennies on the dollar. John Deaton also says here, what do you do when the SEC has spent well over $100 million in manpower and resources the last 3 years arguing XRP is an illegal security? You apply for an XRP hedge fund. Now, we covered this yesterday. But I tell you, Arrington Capital makes a bold move for XRP hedge fund application. And this is exciting to me because I want to see this take place and I want to see everything get approved. But I want to keep moving because we have a lot to go over. And this is Andrew Whitworth, which, if you don't know, has been working recently with the Digital Pound Foundation, I believe. And also, if you're not aware, has been for quite some time the EMEA at Ripple, the policy director there and founder of the ICDEF research, and his views are his own, but we've covered Andrew quite a bit here. But he says UK is making good on its promise to position the country as a leading crypto hub. Now, this goes, in fact, with what we've talked about here and covered others saying here that crypto hub will happen in the UK. And if you look at what Raoul Pal talked about, we covered yesterday, is that you're seeing the recreation of all the big players in the euro dollar market, creating this digital hub between them, and the UK being that central part of that hub. Now, to add to this, Susan Friedman, also head of Ripple Policy, says, as she retweets Andrew's tweet here, as we get ready to celebrate July 4 in the States, notably, it's the UK that is leaving the US behind in key areas. The Financial Services and Markets Act being written into law marks a defining moment for crypto regulation globally. And this is massive that we see that the crypto regulations has been raised to the level of royal assent, which means it's becoming law in the UK. How much longer are we going to deal with this gap, this void in the United States? I do believe that they have a plan in place. I just believe because the U.S. is the largest economy, they're going to move last. And like they do in most cases, I believe it'll happen in the 11th hour and very swiftly when they do. But in the interim, I want you to hear this gentleman here talk about the BIS, Bank of International Settlements Roadmap 2025, and much again, like we have highlighted here, over several years. If the banks are going to use it, then it needs to fall inside of regulation and regulatory framework that the banks already use, which also means that it's going to need to have a name and a designation of something the banks already use. They're not looking to recreate the wheel. If you don't believe me, listen to him say it.
You've heard a lot about us trying to agree on minimum standards that can be applied globally, and that's a lot of what you've heard is us working on that. And Martin was just alluding to the second one, which is once we have those in place, we have to work to ensure that those are implemented consistently around the world. You can't have pockets where it's not implemented. It just doesn't work at that point. In focusing on that first part and agreeing on those standards, what has the FSB done? In 2020, we released our first set of recommendations, high-level recommendations, and they were focused on global stablecoin arrangements. In 2022, October of last year, we released a set of recommendations on crypto assets, activities, and markets, a broader set of crypto assets, I guess is the way I would describe it. Again, a high-level set of recommendations. If it's the same activity and the same risk that's involved, the same regulation should be involved. You can't say, well, we're different.
Listen.
If the same risk is there, it's got to be the same regulation.
He's telling you, and if it's got to be the same regulation and same risk, there's a good chance they might end up calling a lot of this stuff notes or digital asset securities, debt securities, things of that nature. Keep an eye on it.
In October 2022, we sent these 2 sets of recommendations, which are supposed to be a comprehensive set of recommendations for the supervision and regulation of crypto assets. We sent them to the G20 as our draft set of recommendations, and we also released them for public consultation. So they were out for several months on that. The consultation was largely supportive, and we're about to release the revised final recommendations. They'll go to the G20, which is meeting in about 2.5 weeks. The implementation by the end of 2025. The assessment of the implementation of our recommendations by the end of 2025. So we're going to let people put things in place, and then we're going to take some action.
And there you have that. And I think when they take action, again, I think it falls in line with a swift move here in the United States. And speaking of a swift move here in the United States, FedNow will use the new ISO20022 Global Financial Messaging Standard, meaning banks will need to be sure they can submit messages in that format. Now, this is important because we know that we covered this also coming up here too, is that there's another sign that the ISO reporting messaging used within the FedNow services down here. And then we know that we covered this yesterday from JTXRP, give him a follow, that Elspeth Bloodgood of the Faster Payments Council also talked about ISO 20022 and XRP, asked directly, and she calls these standards. Listen to what she says here.
Until people are like, oh yeah, I need to move. Like I get that. Let's talk about ISO 20022 for a second.
Sure.
Now, there's been a lot of hype, I'm just going to say, around that and certain tokens, specifically XRP, XLM. Are you familiar with all these as well that I'm talking about for this?
I'm really familiar with the ISO 20022 message set, and specifically the messages that allow you to move payments.
Yeah.
So I'm less familiar with the other standards you're talking about.
I'm less familiar with the other standards you're talking about. Now, this is a woman that's in the space, the Faster Payments Council, and refers to them as standards just like the ISO 20022. Yeah. XRP Ledger standards, XLM Ledger standards, ISO 20022 standards. I like the way this is sounding to me. Now, here is Brendan Barry right here, and he's going to talk about what XRP, the standard, can do to unlock $10 trillion worth of locked up liquidity for the first time in the world.
I can do so. When I need to move funds, I can do so 24/7, 365, Christmas morning. It doesn't matter. And I don't need to park my working capital and trap it in a Nostro account. There's $10 trillion of capital that's parked and locked in Nostro accounts across the globe, all waiting for deployment by these treasurers and CFOs and financial institutions that you mentioned, that they can deploy across their organizations by using solutions like Ripple Payments to initiate funds on demand and not pre-position them. And our focal point at Ripple is because utility is here. It's not a promise of the future. Blockchain used to be a technology that was focused on, in these types of conversations, of what could it do? And we're at a paradigm right now where what is it doing? And it's solving real customer pain points and problems. And I think cross-border payments is really an incredible space where you can see that impact today, here and now.
And there you have it right there. And that's Brendan Barry, also from Ripple as well, head of payment products. I tell you, shout out to XRP Drops for this and everybody that contributed to all of this information today. This is where we're headed, ladies and gentlemen. And when I think of this, I also think of the BIS, who recently announced that they will be using automated market makers for FX. which eliminates the pre-funding of accounts as well. Now, regardless of whether they're going to use ERC20 tokens or whether they're going to use the XRP ledger, ultimately the macro understanding of automated market makers is where the world and the industry is moving, and they are moving there quickly. And I tell you, I am excited to be here this early to watch it happen. Again, happy 4th to everybody. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one.